November 19th, 1967, Hill 875, Dak To, Kon Tum Province, 2 companies of the 173rd Airborne Brigade advance up an 875-meter ridge and hit a wall of fire. 4 days later, after 278 casualties and 2 medals of honor, paratroopers stand on the summit. The PRC-25 squelch pops. Firepower won't do it here. By November 1967, American commanders trust the formula. Artillery prep, airstrikes, infantry sweep. Dak To sits near the Laotian border, a known infiltration corridor for PAVN forces. Intelligence estimates moderate resistance on Hill 875. The 173rd Airborne Brigade, the U.S. Army's separate airborne brigade in Vietnam, expects to clear the objective in one push. Hill 875 hides a multi-tiered bunker system dug into red laterite clay and reinforced with logs. PAVN engineers honeycomb the slope with firing positions, interconnected trenches, and concealed spider holes. The ridgeline funnels attackers into pre-sighted kill zones, where overlapping fields of fire converge. Vegetation is triple canopy jungle thick enough to defeat visual reconnaissance and obscure mortar impacts. The 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry Regiment call sign Sky Soldiers, carries standard M16 rifles, M60 machine guns, and Claymore mines up the gradient. Close air support sorties from the U.S. Air Force deliver napalm and 500-pound bombs, but canopy deflects blast effects. Artillery from Firebase 16 near Ben Het pounds the hill, yet buried bunkers absorb the concussion. Resupply depends on helicopter lifts to landing zones carved from jungle, and medevac birds take ground fire on approach. PAVN defenders belong to the 174th Regiment, 2nd Division veteran troops who fought at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. They hold interior lines, pre-stocked ammunition, and orders to attrite American units before monsoon rains arrive. The Americans rely on firepower and mobility. The North Vietnamese rely on prepared positions and tolerance for losses. The collision occurs on ground that favors defense over offense, endurance over speed. November 19th, 1967, 0800 hours, Alpha and Delta Companies, 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry, begin the ascent from the northern base of Hill 875. The lead platoon crosses 200 meters of open ground without contact. At 0945 hours, automatic weapons fire erupts from concealed bunkers 50 meters upslope. They're in the trees, they're in the ground everywhere you look, a muzzle flashes. Lozada mans an M60 machine gun on the right flank and suppresses 3 bunker apertures until PAVN fire kills him. He receives the Medal of Honor posthumously for holding his position while his squad withdraws. Forward air controllers vector phone 100 Super Sabres onto suspected bunker lines. Napalm canisters tumble through the canopy and ignite secondary explosions, but the fire burns above ground level. Paratroopers crawl forward with satchel charges and grenades, breaching 1 bunker only to draw fire from 2 more. By 1300 hours, the battalion consolidates 100 meters below the crest and digs in under mortar barrage. Medevac helicopters extract 23 wounded under fire, rotor wash scattering red smoke markers across the slope. Battalion commander requests a 2nd artillery prep for the next assault wave. Firebase 16 fires 1 55mm howitzers in a rolling barrage, but forward observers report bunkers survive intact. The afternoon push gains 30 meters before interlocking machine gun fire stops the advance. I'm going forward, these men need me. Chaplain Waters moves through the kill zone to administer last rites and drag wounded paratroopers to cover. He dies from small arms fire on November 19th and receives the Medal of Honor for his actions under fire. By dusk, 2nd Battalion holds a defensive perimeter 150 meters from the summit. Resupply helicopters drop ammunition and water, but PAVN mortars disable 1 Huey on the improvised landing zone. Not firepower superiority, but bunker depth and overlapping fire control the hill. November 19th, 1967, 1830 hours paratroopers dig foxholes in the rocky soil and string claymore mines along the perimeter. The night brings probing attacks, mortar rounds, and the crack of AK-47s at close range. At 1900 hours, a forward air controller marks the hill's summit with white phosphorus rockets for a final airstrike. Two Phone 100 Super Sabres roll in with 500-pound bombs to suppress PAVN positions before nightfall. The first bomb releases correctly and detonates 100 meters upslope. The second bomb releases early, impacts inside the American perimeter, and kills about 42 paratroopers. The whole world went white, then black. I couldn't hear anything but ringing. The blast collapses, fighting positions, and wounds dozens more. Medevac helicopters cannot land in darkness under hostile fire, so medics treat sucking chest wounds and compound fractures by penlight. Battalion strength drops from 360 effectives to fewer than 200 combat-capable soldiers in one instant. Brigade headquarters at Dak To airstrip orders the battalion to hold position until reinforcements arrive. November 20th dawns with fog blanketing the ridgeline, grounding helicopter support until 1100 hours. PAVN mortars pound the American perimeter, destroying 2 more landing zones. Red smoke drifts through the canopy as forward observers adjust artillery fire, but the rounds detonate too far east. Paratroopers ration water to 1 canteen per man per day and share sea rations under sniper fire. The Claymore clacker clicks as sappers probe the wire, but defensive fire drives them back. By November 21st, the battalion has held the slope for 72 hours without advancing. Brigade commits the 4th Battalion, 503rd Infantry, to relieve pressure, but they hit secondary bunker lines 500 meters west. Hill 875 absorbs 2 battalions and produces no breakthrough. While commanders assumed firepower would crack the defense, terrain and fortification made distance irrelevant. November 20th through 21st, 1967, the 173rd Airborne Brigade's operation stalls across 3 ridgelines near Dak To. Hill 882, 2 kilometers northeast, costs another company 25 casualties in a separate engagement. Logistical strain grows as helicopter sorties exceed airframe capacity and maintenance schedules collapse. At Ben Het, the logistics hub 10 kilometers south, crews offload ammunition pallets faster than Chinooks can lift them forward. The 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry, on Hill 875 reports 30% combat, effective strength by November 21st. We're committed, we cannot leave men on that hill. Schweiter orders the 1st Battalion, 12th Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division, to reinforce the assault. The 112 Infantry marches overland from Firebase 15, reaching the base of Hill 875 on November 22nd. Fresh troops bring resupply, but they also face the same bunker belts that stopped the paratroopers. November 22nd. 0700 hours, a combined assault kicks off with 30 minutes of preparatory fire from 105mm and 155mm howitzers. 4 Phantoms drop cluster bombs on the summit, and forward air controllers report secondary explosions. The infantry advances under covering fire from M60 machine guns, breaching the first bunker line by 10 to 100 hours. PAVN defenders retreat to the 2nd tier, triggering command-detonated mines that wound 12 attackers. Platoon leaders call for mortar fire to suppress flanking positions. By 1400 hours, American forces control the military crest 50 meters below the summit. The final 50 meters cost another 18 casualties, as PAVN soldiers fight from spider holes and individual rifle pits. Red smoke marks friendly positions, but close-quarters combat makes air support too dangerous. At 1600 hours, November 23rd, 1967, paratroopers and infantrymen overrun the summit and find 23 PAVN bodies in the final bunker complex. The hill falls silent except for engineers clearing positions. Total American casualties reach 278 killed and wounded over 4 days for 300 meters of ground. The hill yields to persistence, not velocity. November 23rd, 1967. 1700 hours, engineers blow remaining bunkers on Hill 875 with satchel charges and C4 demolitions. Paratroopers discover a tunnel network extending 40 meters underground, stocked with rice, ammunition, and medical supplies. PAVN engineers had reinforced each bunker with triple-layered logs capable of withstanding direct artillery hits. We dropped everything on that hill, napalm, high explosive, cluster bombs, and they still fought from holes. The 173rd Airborne Brigade establishes a defensive perimeter and begins extracting casualties by helicopter. Medevac birds land on hastily cleared zones, rotorwash scattering red smoke as litters load aboard. Final casualty counts transmit: 87 killed in action, 191 wounded, total 278 for the battalion-sized assault. Compared to other duck tow engagements, Hill 875 produces the highest casualty rate per meter of advance in the campaign. PAVN losses remain uncertain, but body counts and equipment captured suggest elements of a reinforced company held the summit. The 174th Regiment withdraws across the Laotian border before American forces can pursue. November 24th Thanksgiving Day helicopter crews deliver hot turkey dinners to paratroopers on Hill 875. Soldiers eat in foxholes, still smelling of cordite and blood, knowing the hill offers no strategic value beyond denial. Brigade intelligence confirms PAVN forces used Hill 875 as an observation post to monitor Duck Tow Airstrip and Firebase 16. The summit provides no better fields of fire than adjacent ridges, and American forces abandon it within 2 weeks. Journalists at Duck Tow file reports describing the battle as a precursor to future Hamburger Hill engagements. Back in Saigon, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam headquarters tallies the Duck Tow campaign: 376 American dead, 1,441 wounded, 1,644 PAVN dead claimed. Hill 875 accounts for 23% of U.S. deaths in a month-long operation. Commanders realize firepower cannot compensate for fortified terrain and determined defenders operating on interior lines. The battle produces 2 medals of honor, dozens of silver stars, and a recognition that some hills demand blood, not bombs. What broke the position wasn't mass, it was refusal to stop. The perception shift moves faster than the casualty reports. Hill 875 becomes shorthand for a new reality. Firepower wins battles, but endurance decides them. Hill 875 turns that lesson into doctrine, not a headline. November 25, 1967 MACV headquarters in Saigon receives after-action reports from the 173rd Airborne Brigade. General William Westmoreland, MACV commander, reviews casualty figures and orders staff to assess the Duck Tow campaign's strategic impact. By November 30th, the entire Duck Tow operation winds down, with PAVN forces withdrawing into Laos and Cambodia. The 173rd Airborne Brigade counts 208 killed in action during November 1967, the highest monthly loss for any U.S. brigade in the war to that date. Hill 875 accounts for 87 of those deaths, a 42% share from a single 4-day engagement. Journalists covering the battle file stories emphasizing the intensity of close combat and the limits of air support in jungle terrain. The Associated Press runs a photograph of a medic treating a wounded paratrooper on the slope, red smoke obscuring the background. The image appears in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Stars and Stripes, framing Hill 875 as a symbol of infantry sacrifice. We took that hill because we had to, not because it mattered strategically. At the Pentagon, analysts compare Hill 875 to previous engagements like Ia Drang in 1965 and Operation Attleboro in 1966. Unlike Ia Drang, where helicopters enabled rapid maneuver and extraction, Hill 875 devolved into static positional warfare. Unlike Attleboro, where PAVN forces disengaged quickly, Hill 875 defenders fought to the last bunker. The battle demonstrates that PAVN units now fortify key terrain and accept attrition to delay American advances. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara receives casualty summaries in early December and questions the strategic necessity of seizing hills near the Laotian border. Westmoreland defends the Duck Tow campaign as essential to disrupting PAVN infiltration routes before the 1968 dry season. The Claymore clacker clicks in memory as paratroopers recount the battle, emphasizing bunker density and close-range combat. By December 1967, MACV revises operational planning to emphasize reconnaissance in force over terrain, seizure in remote border regions. Units shift to bunker reduction drills, lighter resupply cycles, and tighter CAS danger close SOP, accepting that some hills are seized by stamina, not steel. The lessons of Hill 875 filter through infantry schools and brigade briefings. Firepower prepares the battlefield, but infantry endurance secures it. The 173rd Airborne Brigade receives a Presidential Unit Citation for the Dak To campaign, recognizing sustained combat operations from November 3rd to November 23rd. Paratroopers rotate back to base camps near Bien Hoa and begin refitting for future operations. PAVN commanders, observing American casualty sensitivity, reinforce the strategy of fortified defense in depth to inflict maximum losses. The battle feeds into broader debates over attrition strategy versus population security as the war's focus shifts toward the upcoming Tet Offensive in January 1968. Hill 875 joins a growing list of hard-won positions Con Thien, Dak To, Khe San that illustrate the mismatch between tactical success and strategic ambiguity. American firepower remains overwhelming, but the ability to convert that advantage into decisive outcomes erodes with each costly hill fight. The battle proves that PAVN forces can dictate the terms of engagement by choosing terrain and fortifying it beyond the reach of preparatory fires. Hill 875 changes the question from speed to stamina. By early 1968, Hill 875 fades from headlines as the Tet Offensive dominates media coverage. The 173rd Airborne Brigade redeploys to Bien Hoa Province and participates in operations around Saigon during the Tet fighting. Hill 875 itself remains unoccupied, reverting to jungle as monsoon rains wash away foxholes and landing zones. The two Medals of Honor, awarded to PFC Carlos Lozada and Chaplain Charles J. Waters, formalize the battle's cost in heroism and sacrifice. Veterans of the 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry, carry the memory of 4 days under fire and the red smoke that marked their position. Historians later categorize Hill 875 as a Pyrrhic victory, tactically successful, strategically inconsequential. The battle demonstrates the physical limits of firepower in fortified jungle terrain and the psychological toll of attrition warfare. No hill secured in November 1967 prevents the Tet Offensive 2 months later. Hill 875 proves that terrain seized at high cost offers no immunity from strategic surprise. The battle ends where it began, on a ridgeline that matters only because men fought and died there. Grit on one hill can bend a campaign's tempo. Hill 875 teaches that endurance outlasts firepower when defenders choose the ground and accept the cost. On 875, endurance set the clock, firepower only kept up.